computer. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello. This is Ignacy and Portal Games.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 228. And we're recording this on February 27th, 2022. Board Games Insider is a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. And Vegas, baby, Vegas. Tom Vassell and I will be living large in Sin City this week. Do you think Tom loves Las Vegas in the same way for the same reasons that I do, Ignacy? What do you say?
I think not.
Yeah, I think Tom and I have a
but
much
I have
different...
a story about Tom Vassell and Vegas.
Okay, really?
Yes, we were at Gamma. It was end of the Gamma, but we were still in Vegas for the one more day. And I wanted to bring to my wife, Mary, something from Vegas. And because she collects miniatures of cows, I had this quest to bring a cow from Vegas. And Tom told me that he will help me. And we were walking around Vegas for 3 or 4 hours looking for one stupid cow. And I have to say that I already gave up. And I said, okay, Tom, whatever, I will buy something on the airport. And he said, no, Ignacy, you are not going to Poland without cow for your wife. And he was dragging me from one store to another store. I was very tired, and he was still fighting for this cow. And he helped me, and we found.
That's
and I brought to Poland, yes, and I brought to Poland the miniature little cow. If not him, I would give up like 2 hours earlier.
And then your wife thanked you and kissed you, and everything was good. Aw, that's a very nice story. Meanwhile, what's happening over at Portal Games?
At Portal Games, we are running campaign for 51st State Ultimate Edition. This is a brand new edition of my old game released back then 2010. We are on GameFound. You can find it very easy if you go to gamefound.com. The campaign goes very, very strong. We are very proud. We have now at this point like more than 3,000 backers who support the campaign. 51st State Ultimate Edition, as it sounds, is ultimate big box. It has the base game and 6 expansions inside the box. And as we mentioned many times in this podcast, the industry is in a very difficult moment when there's so many new releases, and the distributors are not super excited about the reprints of older games. So that's why we went to the crowdfunding, and a very short and very honest message from Ignacy. If you want to play 51st State, you better grab it from GameFound, because it will be hard to grab at your local game store just because retailers doesn't want to store other games. Yes?
Right. Yeah, and this is Z Garcia's #1 game of all time. And recently I mentioned that I had never played 51st State, even though it's my shelf of shame in shrink wrap. And Z said, oh, we're going to play it. And I'm like, yeah, baby. So hopefully in Vegas, I get to play it. And by the way, I backed the Ultimate Edition. So I was one of your first backers. There you go.
I appreciate that. And yes, Z is a huge fan of the game. He made a lot of positive vibe around the game. We appreciate that. So this is correct. So this is what we are doing right now. There is a lot of things happening, but also a lot of things happening in the world. So I will not be doing some more news from the Portal Games, because we are not in the best mood for discussing crazy things that are happening at Portal Games. But basically, of course, we are preparing for the new releases and new games, and sending Dune and the sequel for Dune to the print. So things are happening, but let's move on.
Yeah, and I'm gonna cut my information short that I talk about all my fun things and stuff like that. I'll just mention that I came off the Dice Tower cruise just a week or so ago, about 1 week ago. Wonderful time, a little bit of weirdness on the cruise. We don't got to go into that, but one of the game, and I had Corey Thompson and Dan and Julie Luxembourg stay over for almost a week here. They just left. It was wonderful time with the remodeled house. And the one game I want to point out that I played that I had never played before, which is so wonderful, is Letters from Whitechapel. Have you played that game? Wow. That's all I got to say is wow. Now I love
like a Fury of Dracula style game, right?
Yeah. Yes. But it's kind of like, so I kind of likened this game more closely to Scotland Yard.
Yep.
But just like Scotland Yard on steroids. So you do of course have to plot your next move out, but you don't have those cards. You don't have the combat. There's so few rules to this game. It doesn't slog down. It plays in under an hour. It's just amazing. I am going to get another game of this in at Dice Tower West. I'm sure. I loved it. If you're a fan of Fury of Dracula, or of Scotland Yard, or of Spectre Ops, which one?
Yes, or Narcos from Cool Mini or Not as well.
I don't know. Narcos. Yeah. Oh, I got to check that one out too. If you're a fan of that style, this is primo. Got to check that one out. I'm going to stop right there on any other comments, and let's go to the news. We have a lot of news, and then we got to have a special segment on the show. So in our news today, the event deck is here. We had breaking news. That actually, the funny thing is, so we're recording this on February 27th. This news has not broken yet, but by the time it drops the podcast, it will have broken. So breaking news, March 1st is the date on this news. Stonemaier Games goes exclusive in the USA with GTS and with Universal distribution in Canada. So investigative reporter Stephen Bonacore interviewed the COO of Stonemaier Games. Yeah, I actually did. But Alex Schmidt, that's the COO, is a good friend of mine. He reached out to me because he knows we love to do this. And he said, I want to give this information to you so you can put it on the earliest podcast so you can talk about it. Very close to your friend of mine.
We are becoming important.
We are. Maybe we're an important news source all of a sudden. I don't know. That's pretty cool. So, and all this comes directly from Alex. I don't have the press release yet, but everything here is what he told me. So I'm going to read my notes here about the conversation we had. So Stonemaier Games will now sell through GTS in the USA exclusively and through Universal in Canada exclusively for their North American distribution. And with this, they are announcing the Stonemaier Fortress program. And this is with GTS only. They're going to work to get it into the Canadian distribution. This is for retailers. So if you're listening as a retailer, this is very important. If you're a gamer and you patronize, as you should, a local game store, make sure they know about this and take advantage. So one of the big problems that Stonemaier has had for years has been that they release a new game, nobody can get it, right? It's just like
wingspan.
Forget it, right? So they release a new game. A retailer wanted 30 copies. Some retailers wanted 150, 500 copies. They could get like one copy if they were lucky. So this is now going to guarantee that anybody who wants the game can get the game, the retailers. You still have to work with your retailer to get it as well. So this is how the program is going to work. And I think this is genius, right? So they can always be guaranteed an allocation if you have a GTS account and you have gold and platinum. There's no cost to this. You'll get 3 copies guaranteed to you if you're a gold member at GTS, or 6 copies if you're a platinum member. No cost, no like previous purchases. You just tell them, I want to be platinum. I want 6 copies of every new release from Stonemaier, right? Or 3 copies. The bigger retailers, of course, can order more. Many will, but there's your minimum that you'll be able to get. You can opt out if you really don't want a game, like say you don't want a new release. You can say, you know what? No, I don't want any. Just pull me out for now and I'll come back in later. The benefits to retailers. Smaller retailers that could not get games, now they're guaranteed, to get a minimum allocation. And this is going to be focusing on all retailers, of course, not just the big ones, right? It was like, a company like Stonemaier would have to supply the bigger retailers with most games, and the small mom and pops would get screwed. Now everybody gets it. If you don't like GTS, you don't want to order through GTS, Stonemaier is offering direct sales to retailers with only $150 minimum order. That's like 3 games. So retailers can choose to order direct or go with GTS. The shipping terms will probably be better if you go with GTS, but if you're really going to only order a little bit, then it's probably better to go through Stonemaier. They don't care which way you go. My thoughts on the whole thing is that the distribution model is so broken in the US, and distributors only compete on pricing, not on service as they should. They have become order takers only. And distributors are often bad actors sometimes and do not limit sales to online retailers who then go break contracts by selling games in places they're not allowed to sell them. So therefore, Stonemaier Games will ensure brick and mortar retailers get at least a minimum amount or more on each solicit new orders or the older games that are coming back. Retailers don't have to play the I'll order from all the distributors and then maybe I'll get a few copies, which is a lot of times what they've done. They will always get games from new releases and future printings of games. Ignacy, I think this is phenomenal news for retailers, but also for gamers that patronize stores. There'll always be some copies coming in. Work with your retailers to get your copy of a new release. Get on their list. I want a copy. Hopefully you can get a copy.
Yes, it sounds very good. Of course, I'm Slavic, so I'm always skeptical. So the time will prove how this program works, because there is always this problem that the game becomes a hit when it is already too late for business to react. At some point, the retailer may say, "Oh, I need only the 3 copies. I need only 1 copy," or "Oh, I don't need this new game from Stonemaier Games." Suddenly, the game becomes viral, and then, of course, everybody is complaining that they have no chance to order. Here, this press release will say that you can have your 3 copies secured. Hopefully, it will work. But from my experience with distribution in America, absolutely a roller coaster. Some of my games became viral and I was super surprised, and I was just reprinting, and some of the games didn't catch up. So I applaud every solution, every way to try to control this demand and these problems. So hopefully it will work, and if it works, more and more publishers will try to do the same. I'm not a fan of exclusivity. I said very, very often that I prefer to work with many partners, not cutting somebody from the business. But it is a problem now for other distributors that they got cut off.
Mm-hmm. So continuing in big news in the game industry, Ravensburger, who I like to call the Hasbro of Germany, though they both have mass market and gamers games, but they're just a huge company, and puzzles and toys. Yeah, they do all. So that's why I kind of compare them. They're not nearly as big, but in general terms, they do gamers games, but they're mostly into that bigger, broader category. Ravensburger is investing in the crowdfunding platform GameFound, $4.5 million from Ravensburger's Next Ventures program. So here's the release. Ravensburger AG's Next Ventures Fund is investing $4.5 million in the new game crowdfunding platform GameFound, which we've talked about a lot here. The company's announced today, German-based toy and game manufacturer Ravensburger launched Next Ventures earlier this year to fund innovation products and startup investments globally. This is Next Ventures Fund's first investment. So it's the first time they've actually used their Next Ventures program. GameFound was launched in beta last year by Polish game publisher Awaken Realms, which initially built the platform to handle its own games. To date, over $22 million has been raised on the platform. For context, over $235 million was raised for tabletop games on Kickstarter in 2020, the last year for which information is available. So, Ignacy, this is huge because you made the prediction, of course, that GameFound will be, I believe you said 15% of the total number. I can see it. I think your prediction is now, if you knew this beforehand, I'm going to be mad at you. I think this is big news that Kickstarter, with all of its horrible customer service, and trust me on this, guys, they treat the project owners terribly. They don't do a good job of interfacing. You never talk to a human being there. You go to GameFound, you're talking to human beings who are working the customer service for the people creating these projects. This is great. They've already announced, GameFound, that they're going to be doing new VAT modules and tax tables and things like that to make their platform more robust. They stayed away from this nonsense about we're going to create a blockchain thing and put it into public. All these buzzwords that Kickstarter said, which made no sense whatsoever that they would be going that direction. Kudos, GameFound, love it. Good stuff. Ignacy?
Yeah, so of course I didn't knew about this news about Ravensburger. What I knew is that I know personally Marcin Świerko, the owner of Awaken Realms, and I see a man with a ton of energy, a man who wants to achieve something, a man who has plans, and who works every single day to grow GameFound. And when I look at the Kickstarter, I see the company who earned a ton of money and is satisfied with what they have, and they are not ready to, be better, to adjust to the situation, to look for the new solutions. And we see this new, young, passionate company from Poland who tries to become better and better and better. We don't know what will happen in the next 5 years, but with this more and more news coming, how GameFound is trying to create better platform for the creators and better platform for the users, we may discuss if in a 5 years window or 10 years window, they will become bigger in a crowdfunding area in the tabletop industry. Of course, we have to remember that Kickstarter is the tabletop part of the Kickstarter is the biggest part, but this is just the part. While for the GameFound, this is 100% of their operation. Anyway, of course, as I said, I know personally the team at Awakened Realms. I was supporting them from the very beginning with my Robinson Crusoe campaign last year, and interesting news.
Really, really great stuff. And then there was a follow-up on ICV2, excuse me, the next day where Marcin, how do you say his last name?
Schwerkot.
Was interviewed why he started this, how much money they originally put in. It was funded directly from Awakened Realms and his personal capital. They put $50,000 in to start. And think about that. So they now raised money. Think about this number. So they now raised money at a much bigger valuation. So we don't know how much of GameFound is now owned by Ravensburger. But even let's say 50%. Make that up. I don't know if it's 50%. That means that the valuation of this company is now $9 million, from a $50,000 startup to a $9 million valuation, if you follow that logic. Amazing stuff. And he goes through and talks about how they're going to continue to grow it. Ignacy, you read this article? Did you see some of this?
Yes, and I have also an interview with Marcin in my Moloch Monthly magazine. I remind our listeners that I started a magazine about board games, and every month we release a new issue, and I did an interview with Marcin as well. And we were discussing the future of GameFound and how they want to use this money, this input of Ravensburger cash, and basically hire more people, evolve, prepare more features for the players and more features for the creators. You just mentioned they want to solve the tax problems for the creators from America here in Europe, but there's much more they want to do. So basically, yes, we have a company who is on fire, who is growing, and who just got a huge injection of money to once again to grow and grow and grow. Good stuff.
This is a great quote from the interview here. The interviewer asked, "What was the pre or post funding valuation of GameFound?" Now that means exactly what I was just saying. If it was if they bought 50%. The valuation is $9 million. If they bought 10%, the valuation is $45 million post funding. So Martin refused to answer the question. It's business details that he can't disclose, which makes 100% sense. But you can see that Ravensburger believes strongly in what they can do on this platform. So I think this is just great news all around for gamers and game publishers, creators. Exactly right. So speaking of Ravensburger, how about pitching your game to the biggest, as we say? This is in German. Okay, some of it's not in German. I see it. Ignacy, so they're going to be allowing you to submit an application to then have your game reviewed by Ravensburger. So one of the biggest companies is coming back and saying, do it.
So this is like an open days with the developers and the team from Ravensburger. You can pitch your prototype to Ravensburger, and it will take 2 days, March 11 and March 12. And this is absolutely interesting way to meet professionals from one of the biggest companies in the industry, pitch your prototype, and maybe maybe got lucky and get published by one of these biggest things. And this is something that we mentioned this last year with the coronavirus issues, when we started to learn how to use online tools to communicate and not only face-to-face conventions. We have more and more companies having actions like that. We reported Pegasus Spiele doing something like that last year. And here we have Ravensburger Inventor Days.
Really, really cool that they're enabling that. So if you want to take advantage of this, you have to do it immediately. If you're a designer and you want to take advantage of this, you have until March 3rd. This podcast will drop on March 2nd. So you have 2 days from the time we put this out for you to take advantage. Send them an application. You can get that application at ravensburger.de/start/inventor-days/index. So it's a hard one, but if you go to Ravensburger's website,
yeah, you just Google Inventor Days Ravensburger and you will get to the link to the article. And I strongly recommend just to try, just to have this professional connection, to get some feedback, and the chances that you will be published by Ravensburger are low, but the way how you will learn from this experience will be very, very good for you.
Absolutely. Kickstarter, since we're in this entire thing with Kickstarters and crowdfunding and what the impact is of the new investment by Ravensburger, Kickstarter announced that they have grown again by a double-digit number for the 7th consecutive year, by the way. Tabletop funding on Kickstarter grew 13% in 2021 from $237 million in 2020 to $272 million last year, according to a post on Medium by Thomas Bidew of ICO Partners. The 13% growth rate, while strong, was down from the 34% growth rate in 2020. Is that an impact of GameFound? Don't know. The growth in tabletop game funding on Kickstarter in 2021 was the 7th consecutive year of growth. Funds raised have gone up every year since Kickstarter launched in 2021, except one in 2014. Projects on GameFound, the new crowdfunding platform specifically for tabletop games, raised $22 million in its first year, which took some of the growth from Kickstarter. The combined total of GameFound and Kickstarter dollars raised in 2021 amounts to $294 million, or 24% more than the dollars raised on Kickstarter in 2022. Tabletop game funding on Kickstarter slowed in the second half of 2021. First half funds raised were up 22% of the previous year. So the growth rate in the second half was significantly below the full year rate of 13%. Over 3,500 tabletop game projects were funded on Kickstarter in 2021. Also, so that might be the biggest note right there, the last line. There were 3,500 tabletop game projects funded on Kickstarter last year. What?
Divided by 350 days, and you give the number. How many games are every day on the Kickstarter?
How many new tabletop game projects every year? That's crazy. That's absolutely 100 a day. What is it? I mean, it's a crazy number. I mean, I don't know, not the 100, but it's unbelievable number that they're bringing out every year. Wow. So no end in sight here. Let's move over to more news in the bigger world of board game publishing. Hachette, we've talked about a number of times. They're the 4th largest book publisher in the world, the #1 in France, and the owner of several board game related assets already, like Studio H, that's a publisher, and French retailer Philibert. They're going to buy a majority stake in another publisher, La Botte de Jeu. I know that's wrong, but that's as best as I can do. Ignacy, how does your French?
No French.
La Botte de Jeu, which we're going to say as LBDJ. Today, Hachette will announce that we have reached an agreement this is by the way, a translation, from a French website, so it might be a little bit odd. They announced they've reached an agreement to take a majority stake in the firm LBDJ, La Botte de Jeu. It's been 8 years since LBDJ was founded with high school friends, It started from a naive and improbable idea to become more than, and has become more than we expected. They've made a number of games, Invasions. I don't think a single person who crossed paths with us at the time imagined what a game box would become. It's a little rough, the translation here from the website. But the point is, Hachette, who took a little bit of a break, I would say, kind of during COVID, you haven't heard of them continuing aggressively to buy companies. But I had mentioned that Hachette could become like the next kind of Asmodee. I'm interested to see where they go with this. There's a thought, and this comes from a good friend of ours, Eric, who sends us these great things. Thank you, Eric, for doing that. He's from Flatlined Games, and he said that this might be a talent play, so to speak, where they went out to grab this company has so much Kickstarter experience to maybe now use that experience to buy that experience, so to speak, to now do more and more games on Kickstarter or on GameFound, on crowdfunding, because they didn't have the direct experience in that. Ignacy, any comments on this?
Yeah, I just want to get our listeners the phase of this La Bourgeon, blah blah blah. What we are talking, you should know them from the games Is a Wonderful World and It's a Wonderful Kingdom. There are two big Kickstarters for them, both very good games with a beautiful artwork. And for you geeks, if you want to match the news with the face, and for you, face is the cover of the game. The company we are talking about is a company that is behind these amazing two games. It's a Wonderful World and It's a Wonderful Kingdom.
Right. Thank you again, Eric Hanouiz of Flatlined Games, for helping us with our news stories, and so many other people come and bring us news stories. Thank you so much. And continuing with Hachette, the parent company of Hachette may be purchased. Again, this comes from France. People have keep posted on what's going on there, and they send it to us. The battle for control of La Gerdere, parent company of Hachette Livre, seems to be turning in favor of another French company, Vivendi. The conglomerate, whose holdings include book publisher Editis, has agreed to buy 17.9% stake in La Gerdere, held by investor Amber Capital, for about $720.6 million. Vivendi already holds a 26.7% stake in La Gerdere. Under French regulations, once a company's stake in another company exceeds 30% level, it must make a tender offer for all remaining shares. Very interesting. That's not a law in this country. What this means for game publishing in France and maybe the bigger game publishing universe and elsewhere, right? Stay tuned. We don't know. It's just an interesting side that Hachette is going bigger, and now a bigger company is coming in and possibly buying Hachette. Wow. This is like, doesn't this sound a little Asmodee-like?
And for our more precise investigative journalism, we need more reporters in France so we don't struggle using Google Translate. So, dear listeners, if something important is happening in France, let us know in English.
That's right. That's right. So right now, everybody, we're going to be skipping a lot of the next parts of the segments that we normally do. We're not going to take strategy and tactics and the questions there. We're not going to go and do play testing. And we apologize to you. But Board Games Insider now has to make a very special statement to Europe, United States, and the world. Ignacy, I don't even know if I don't even know if Matthew's going to roll some sounds to go to a next segment. He probably should. Matthew, roll some sounds. And Matthew, get ready to bleep some words that will be uncomfortable and not safe for work words. So, Ignacy, do you want to start with this, or would you like me to? I mean, you start and I'll continue.
Okay. I asked Steven if we can discuss the things that are happening in Ukraine right now, and he, of course, agreed to discuss this in the podcast, even though this is a board game podcast. And the reason is that for the past few years, when I became a part of the board game industry and family, and got so many friends in Western culture and Western countries, I saw lots of people being emotionally engaged when bad things are happening. And of course, when there is some, for instance, terrible events like shooting in the school, and everybody is saying about thousand prayers and that we have to remove guns from the schools, etc., etc. And I see that everybody is living with that. We had this terrible civil unrest with Black Lives Matter when bad things happened in America, and we all lived with that, and we hoped for the change for the world. And there was a lot of good changes happening, so that was a good solution. And now what is troubling me is that the few hundred miles from my home, from Poland, there is actual war. There are tanks, there are airships, there is people dying. And I see that it looks like in Western countries, not everybody is getting this right perception that this is real war. This is not something trailer for the movie. This is not video game. And it bothers me a lot. And I wanted to use this podcast and the help of the Steven, because he speaks English much better than me, to say it very, very clearly that if we as a community were engaged and terrified when there was a civil unrest or when there was a shooting in one school, and now we see the whole country invaded by tanks, airships, like everything. People are dying there. And I don't see that everyone is understanding the perception and the gravity of these events. As for today, as we are recording, in these past 4 days, to Poland, we have already more than 150,000 refugees. These are women with kids escaping from Ukraine to Poland, looking for the help. 150,000 families who left the country. And these are women and children, because all the men are in the country fighting for the freedom, fighting for the with the oppressor. So I wanted to put this topic in your perception, that please don't treat it as like one of many news in CNN or whatever station you're looking. This is the main news of the things that is happening right now in the world. And this is a real world. And I'd like to encourage you to try to do something with that. And what I mean by trying to do something with that, because for the first time in many, many years, I'm pretty proud of what Poland and Polish nation is doing. I was quite vocal, mostly in Poland, about my criticism to Polish government, and I was not very happy with Poland for the past 10 years, I would say. And I was ashamed with the things that were happening in this country. But for the past 4 days, this country is finally doing something that I'm proud of in a large scale through the people of Poland. And my social media and everything that I get the news from is all people in Poland trying to help Ukraine. And this is a ton of actions, and I'm very proud of what we are doing here. This is not people saying thoughts and prayers, or changing the status on the Facebook, or giving them support Ukraine. These are real action, and my social media feeds this day are like a war operation with people. We are bringing food to Ukraine. We are bringing medical stuff to Ukraine. We are going, and this is like every post today is on in Poland is like, I'm going to border. I have a bus. I can take 6 people. Let me know if anybody needs help. Hey, I have a transport company. I have private buses. I can bring them to Poland, etc., etc. So the whole country is working very hard, and not just talking about the support, but actively working. And I want to encourage all of you, our listeners in the Western world, that you can act too, that you can also be part of this terrible event, part of this terrible situation, and act, not only by telling that you are supporting Ukraine in the war, but acting. And I want to be an example of what you can do. Portal Games announced what we are doing to support Ukraine. We are quite accidentally We are the publisher of the Polish edition of Mysterium. Our listeners know the anecdote how I went to Lvov, Ukrainian city, and I convinced designers to not sign with Asmodee, but to sign with me. And I have this game. This is a fun anecdote. For super crazy reasons, the new edition of this game was scheduled to be released next week. It is completely coincidence that this Ukrainian game, the brand new edition, was scheduled for the next week. And we announced the 500 boxes of this new print run. The whole profit we are giving to the humanitarian organizations, and this is what Portal Games is supporting Ukraine. We are also doing something that is, and I want it also to be a very clear message. What is happening in Ukraine and with Russia is, it doesn't mean that all Russians are bad people. This is like a regime that is acting, and I want to be very clear. So I want to say the very, very open. We are publishing in Poland a game from Cosmodrome Games. The game is called Skytopia. These are Russian publishers. And as you can, Steven and you listeners can imagine, here in Poland, there's lots of people who are saying, I will never buy Russian product again, I hate Russia, etc., etc. We received the official statement from Cosmodrome Games that were saying very clearly what they think about Putin and the regime, and you can imagine what they say and what they think about it. So we decided that we together will do a positive action as well, and we decided to transfer 25% of the whole income from this Russian game once again to humanitarian organizations to show that this game is from Russia, but these Russian people are good people and they're great designers, and we support them, and we will take this money, this income from this game, and transfer to help Ukraine. But what's more, on Portal Games website, we listed all the organizations that you can support, and we did it in English, so you understand them. And these are the legit organizations that really bring help to Ukraine by buying flashlights, buying power banks, buying medical support, buying helmets, buying Kevlar vest, etc., etc. And every money matters, because these people are fighting, and you cannot go to Ukraine fight, but you can send them money so they will fight in a more safe way. And we often joke here in this podcast with Steven that Ignacy is scared of everything. I'm scared of flying, I'm scared of sailing, I'm scared of swimming, I'm scared of like literally everything. Spiders, snakes, everything terrifies me. But this is the moment to just act and show some courage. And so I think about me and Portal Games and all people working here like a quartermaster. Like, we are bringing stuff to Ukraine. We are raising money. We are raising items that you can transfer to Ukraine to help them. And I'm very proud of what we are doing here in Poland, what we are doing at Portal Games, and what all people in Poland are doing. As for example of small things that we can do, and this is like, once again, example of how every money matters that you can transfer. We at Portal Games have obviously web store. That means that we ship packages. That means that we have a lot of cardboard boxes. And Steven, you are working in the industry, you know cases of boxes, right? Publisher doesn't need these boxes anymore when the game is sold.
Right.
But these boxes are needed to bring all these blankets, all these flashlights, all these medical things, to bring them to the border. So now our web store is providing cardboard boxes here to the humanitarian organizations here in our city. So people who bring food, water, whatever, we can help transfer it to the border. Anyway, I want to encourage all of you to visit Portal Games website or any website in your country that lists legit humanitarian organizations and pay some money. This is the moment to act. This is the moment to buy one less Starbucks coffee. This is time to buy maybe one less add-on on a Kickstarter, maybe not to buy a cake at Applebee's, and put these 10 bucks, 20 bucks to make a difference over there. Of course, I'm super engaged and involved and emotionally engaged with this, because this is so close to me, and because I know many people in this region with designers of Mysterium themselves. So I have a lot of terrible stories that I will not tell aloud, because this is very, very bad and not very fun to talk about these terrible things. But the main message is, if you, Western world, could be engaged with civil unrest or shooting the school, we are now talking about the tanks killing people in Ukraine. And I want you to act and put your money in the humanitarian organizations. This is my call to action.
That was the most beautifully said thing. I told you, Ignacy, I was going to get emotional.
No,
when we talk about this,
I'm very serious. We are now soldiers. We are fighting to help. We are not emotional. We just gather money, transfer them to Ukraine, and feel, each of you think of yourself as a quartermaster of this operation. Like, you can put the money, you can put the stuff in the hands of these poor people who need them. So as I said, I'm very motivated and very positive that now we are in a war, but we are quartermasters. We are not fighting with the guns, but we are fighting with the money, and we can do it.
Yeah. I wish I couldn't be emotional, but I am. I'm an emotional man. And I'm going to make my own statement here. And it's very important that we all understand that anything I say is not about the Russian people who are out there protesting, who might get arrested, thrown in jail.
They will. This is the system that they will be. There is already thousands of people in the jail in Russia.
For that fucking idiot, Putin, will do that. So this is not about the Russian people. But I want to state to everybody out there who's listening, the old adage about those who refuse to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We are right now in 2022 reliving 1939. That's what's happening. It's not a political statement. We're making a statement for freedom. Statement against the madman, against the superpowers invasion, against the free and peaceful people. The bravery of the people of Ukraine are absolutely amazing. I see them standing in front of tanks. It's amazing. So, Ignacy, if you have exact places that people can send money, please let us know. Obviously, just generally, the Red Cross and things like that, I'm sure can help. If you have places that people can send in particular that can get humanitarian aid in, personally, if we can get just money to fund arms and bolster their military, that's a great thing that we could try to do. And I'm going to make this statement because you guys know out there, you know very well that my knowledge of business and the financial system is greater than the average person. Remove that motherfucker from the SWIFT system, 100%. The SWIFT system is what enables cross-border financial transactions. They can turn rubles into dollars and send them across borders, into euros and send them across borders. Remove Russia from the SWIFT system. It will cripple his economy, cripple it. He's got a reserve, fine. Meantime, we'll remove him from there. He won't be able to get more money. And Germany, who is now committed military aid, good for them, great. They also refused for the longest time during this entire thing to remove them from the SWIFT system because it'll hurt their economy. Fuck that, guys. US, get your head out of your ass and remove them from the SWIFT system. This is the single biggest thing we can do. If you're listening to the news at all, they're calling this the nuclear option. Do it. Remove him. This will cripple him as much more than anything that we can do. Italy, Germany, the two biggest protesters against doing this, get your head out of your ass. 1939 is being relived right now. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah, so exactly as Steven said, on one hand, we expect the politicians and people who have power to act. On the other hand, I'm super proud of just average people who just one person by person going themselves to the border and bringing these refugees to homes. And in my city here in Gliwice, there's so many people who already saying, I have an apartment, they can live with me, and etc. So we are talking about, as I said, 150,000 refugees right now after 4 days, and there'll be just more and more and more. And these countries need help from everybody to help. So please act one Starbucks coffee less, bring money to Ukraine, they need this. And as Steven said, you either look by yourself, Google the legit organization, or you can go to Portal Games website. I prepared it for you. So go to portalgamesus.com, and there's a list of all organizations. You can support children, you can support the medical support, you can, all different various organizations are listed there. So what is most important for you and for your heart and thinking, you will choose the organization that you want to support. All of them are legit, and all of them are trusted, and all of them will use the money the best way possible to help people in need.
Very well put. Thank you, Ignacy. Let's just end the podcast right now. Final scoring just says, thank you so much for listening, and help us spread the word about this podcast, but help the Ukraine and the people there. Thank you.
Take care, guys. See you next time.